Our final speaker for this morning is Dr. Cheryl Kicket-Tucker. As I previously mentioned, Cheryl is the founding director of Pindi Priority Limited, Centre for Research Excellence in Aboriginal Wellbeing. He's currently Associate Professor, Institute of Positive Psychology and Education of the Australian Catholic University. Cheryl was also a valuable member of the reference group which guided the consultation project, and since been involved in briefings I've held with Directors General of government departments and leaders of the not-for-profit sector. Cheryl's going to tie all this together, I don't know that we told you that, Cheryl, and provide a perspective on what this consultation and its findings mean for the community and the opportunities before us. Can I just note that in about 3 minutes' time, just as Cheryl's getting started, Darren's going to stand up and that will be the cue for our minute's silence. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's get on to my bit. So my bit, it's about making their voices count. Oh gosh, technology, jeez. Okay, Belia is the Noongar name for Perth, and as we talked earlier, this is the Wajak Noongar Maya, our home, showing the mighty Derbil Yerrigan, which is the Swan River. And our dreaming stories is about the Wargle, and there's a reason why. Look at that map. Doesn't that river look like a snake? I wonder if you've seen that before. Well, there you go. So not from that perspective, yeah. So I want to share this stuff with you because everything that I do comes from my heart, and my heart's connected to my culture, my family, my identity. I'm very strong in my identity. I'm a Wajak traditional owner. I have a Balladong and Yuit family. Auntie Di's from the Yuit country. My grandparents were... Sorry, Auntie Carol. Sorry. Auntie Carol, Auntie Di's the other one. But my grandparents were taken to Norcia Mission, Desi, you know, like you were talking, and their wedding was performed in Spanish. The whole thing was Spanish. And my grandparents' names were also changed as well into Spanish. On my father's side, my dad was taken away and put at Roland's Mission, and he and his family, his sisters and him were separated. They weren't allowed to speak to each other. They weren't allowed to speak lingo. They weren't allowed to interact, and all their names were changed. My dad has 2 dates of birth. So, but every year tells me he's 21, so we stick with that one, you know. Yeah, my dad's been through a heck of a lot. Like you, Desi, I grew up very similar. But I am a product of my parents. My father and my mother are very strong people. You wouldn't want to have a fight with them, I can tell you now. I just don't try to do it either. And like you, Desi, I was the first in my family to graduate with a degree. My mum calls me a professional student, because I keep studying all the time. And my background is sports science, for those people who don't know. I also used to be a professional basketball player. So I've done quite a bit, but it's not me, it's the support around me and the people and their hearts and their minds that help me get to where I'm getting to, and that's what my presentation is about today. I can give you recommendations, but they're already written in the executive summary. But you have to have you've got to be a certain way in order to enact those, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we'll go to the next one. So this is my country. I'm up the northern part of the river, the north part of the river, the best side of the Perth, particularly Midland. And, sorry? Yeah, north side. Yeah, north side. So we always have fight with the south side mob, you know, like the north is better. You know, the water flows down. You're getting all the garbage stuff. We got the fresh stuff. So something in that water in the hillbillies. I don't know. I live in the hills. So this is near a place called, oh gosh, I've forgotten it now, Devil's Elbow. And my mum's written stories about this, but you will know it as, what do you call it? It's in Guildford there. Fish Market Reserve. You know it as Fish Market Reserve, we know it as Devil's Elbow. So that's a picture. I'm a photographer too. I like taking photos, Desi. Great photos. This is from my house. And it looked like blood to me, so that's why I put it into this slide. All those stories, the data that was, the stories and the narratives that you just listened to of Aboriginal kids, and particularly what Desi talked about, there are bloodlines through those. The bloodlines are our storylines. And in those, these are the things that I've pulled out. The first thing I'll put up the top here, you won't see it up there, is I've written emotion, life, and I've written Desi's story. But the thing is, the Aboriginal worldview is a significant part of what we it sets our beliefs, our values, and ultimately our behaviour. And it's our worldview, and we're the ones that have it. So if you want to work with our mob, you've got to have an Auntie Carol, or 2 or 3 or 4. It's really important. Our worldview, everything's connected, and there's relationships between the past, present and future, and people and the environment particularly. The other thing about the stories that are shared, like with Desi's story, and in the information and all these booklets and reports that have been put together, is the diversity that are amongst those children and youth that have, like Desi, you said you're Noongar. No, you live in you're Noongar Yamaji. Yeah, but your family traditionally Yamaji country? Yeah. So we're all muddled up mob. That's what I'm trying to say, because we've all got a little bit of everything in us. I'm Noongar from 3 different tribes, and my husband's Wangatha, and he's from the Northern Dalawaljan tribe, which is from the northeast goldfields. So my kids basically got 5. And I am a mother. I have 3 kids, 1 in every decade. I mean that, 20, 15 and 5. And they all know who they are because they get that from us. And that's what the kids said in the stories, didn't they? They said family is important to connect us to country, identity and culture. So husband and I are both educated in the Wadjala system, but we also know our Aboriginal side as well. And we, like you said, walk into the 2 worlds, The other thing with the diversity is we can be diverse, but be mindful that there are silent and missing voices as well. And I put my hand up to fly the flag for urban Aboriginal kids and children because government, any government people here? Government people like having sessions and workshops and conferences. Guess where? Broome time. They like to go to Cable Beach, Broome, places like that to have their conferences and ministerial whatevers. It's the kids down here that are not seen. They're not seen, then they're not heard. People think we don't, we go past the black stump, and the more past that black stump you go, this is what us as Aboriginal people joke about, the more blackfellow you are. Well, it's not true. I have kids, and even some adults say to me, but you don't look Aboriginal, how are you a full blood? And I said, listen here, you're a wrong person to pick on today, kiddo. If I got something and I jabbed you with, something, and blood came out, something came out, and I jabbed myself, what do you think we're full of? Jelly beans? We're full of blood. We're both full blood. What are you talking about? Blood is one colour. Hello, we're human beings. So that's the way we try and teach these kids with a bit of humour, because that's one of our life skills, is get through our lives with humour. It keeps us, because we have a good old yarn. But that's one of the ways we try and teach our kids. But so the diversity is really important, and to not forget, people don't look a certain way doesn't mean they're not Aboriginal. Aboriginal people, the unseen things make up our culture. The other things that come through the bloodlines of the stories that the kids have talked about is, and some of the adults particularly, is the community ownership and involvement. Without community, there's no structure, there's nothing. And within those structures and in your policies and procedures, they better be culturally secure and inclusive. So those kids who don't look Aboriginal, these programs that you're running must be inclusive of those kids as well. And they must be culturally secure. And what does that mean? Well, everyone hears that word cultural awareness, yeah? What does that mean? I'm culturally aware, but I ask you, what the heck are you going to do about it? So there's a continuum, actually. It's cultural awareness, cultural safety, cultural security, cultural sustainability. How is your organisation going to get to the end point? You can only do that with Aboriginal people, using a worldview, acknowledging the diversity and having that community ownership and involvement. The thing for us too, we're a holistic mob. Everything impacts everything we do. So there's a lot of relationships and linkages between our education, our health, mental health, employment outcomes and wellbeing. All those things impact. We believe in and we practice the relationships of the past, the present and the future. in everything that we do, our daily life, our belief systems, how we hold ourselves in public, how we do things at home with our families. The big one for us as well, everything's connected in terms of our kinship groups. So we can talk about nuclear families, but they don't really kind of exist for us. We have kinship groups, and kinship groups are large, like big time. Every time we go somewhere, I'm always finding someone, and I'm pretty sure I'm related to these two guys. We're just working it out, actually, that someone's, that we're all related to each other. So that's why I had to go and marry a man from the Northeast Goldfields, because I'm not related to him. And it happened to be that I met him at a basketball competition, so it worked out well. The bloodlines of the kids that were talking, everything they say, particularly with Desi's presentation, very honourable and very sincere, Okay, next one. I talk a lot. I'm going to have to quickly move because we're going to get going. What do kids want from you, okay? From all of that information, like I said, there is an executive summary, and on page 17, there are 8 key strategies in this booklet here. Have you got this one? On page 17. You can read those at your own time, and you've got a great team from the Commissioner for Children and Young People, with the Commissioner here leading and Darren on the side over here, who can help talk to you more in detail, and also with Auntie Carol and Swan Alliance and all the other groups, about how to implement those key strategies practically in your organisations. But what I'm going to talk to you today about, what kind of person are you in order to make that happen? You have to be a certain person, right? One of the things that the kids say in that executive summary is on page 13, and it says, the concern of the kids, and it's been brought up by Jude, was their views about their community and about themselves were not always heard and respected by adults. What's the first thing that kids want? Deep listening. Does anyone know what deep listening means? Well, I took a bunch of people to Cartagara, which is Kings Park, and there's a waterfall feature there near the Women's Memorial, and I stood them all on the bridge there, and there was one Aboriginal lady and 2 Wadjala ladies, and I kind of had my bias as to how this would work out, and I said there, now stand there on that bridge, close your eyes and just listen to that water for 3 minutes. Well, the Aboriginal ladies sat there, stood there, well past the 3 minutes. The 2 non-Aboriginal ladies didn't last like 15, 20 seconds. So to really know who we are as people, you've really got to shut down and really allow all your senses to be penetrated by the things that we say and by the words and our body language and our aura. Otherwise, you will never know what it's like to stand in our shoes. You will never understand that worldview. It's really important, and it's really key to be able to deep listen. And it's skill. You have to have. It's a skill. It has to be practiced daily. Those people that do meditation, they're pretty good at it, because it's hard to calm your own thoughts down inside your head, and you need those calmed down in order to listen to someone else, but not just listen, but to really hear them. So the other things that kids want is respect. We as adults expect kids to respect us because we're older and got more feathers, as my mother would say. But kids want that as well. That's a part of them feeling valued as a human being, whether they're Aboriginal, young, old, or not. It doesn't matter. It's being respectful is showing that you care and that you value them as a human being. They also need your understanding in. Like, for instance, today, you would never have known Desi's story if he hadn't told that to you. When I go to the shops, where I live, people got no idea of my story. Have got no idea I used to be a pro basketball player. I used to play in the States. I have a PhD, that blah, 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 got no idea. So, those stereotypes that come in there really are not good for us. Our kids also need your empathy too, to actually feel what they feel. And you can't do that if you can't deeply listen. You can't feel any of that. The other things that kids want is your sincerity. And you might say something, but if your actions and your body language and your aura do not match what you say, kids pick it up real quick because they're sponges. Aren't they, teachers? The teachers in the room. They're sponges. I don't know about high school kids, but... But primary school kids, sponges. Again, the next one is action and not words. Aboriginal kids will judge you whether or not you do something with this report, and those actions match your words. Because once you lose the rapport, you'll lose respect, and you will lose everything else, and you won't have a relationship, which forms the basis of everything we do. And I'll get to that next. And quickly, the Aboriginal kids want control. You've got to include them. I've got a program starting up where the kids in my program do everything from organising the wellbeing classes that we're doing and running the basketball program that we've got. I don't do anything. They're the leaders. They're called my peer ambassadors. They do the whole thing. They look after the budget. We're just supporting them if they need us. Aboriginal kids have rights. The Declaration of the Rights of Children, familiarise yourself with that, because that'll give you a good grounding of how to implement some of this stuff here. We also, as Aboriginal people, we need economic stability. We need to be employed. So if an Aboriginal person turns up at your place, give them a job. Yes, they might not have the modular criteria of being qualified, but they've got all the other stuff that Auntie Carol has. The networks, which you'll never know. How to get in and out of a community. Who to go speak to, where do they live, what's happening on those days. If funerals going, you don't go there, you're not wasting your time. We know that stuff. That stuff is rich. It's expertise, needs to be paid for. Aboriginal kids want to be valued. And the other things I've written down here from what Desi spoke about, I've written down here is also love, guidance and honesty. They were the other three things that I got from your presentation, so I'm going to add them in. Now, there were three people that I have met in my journey recently who have a lot of that. And these are Libby Elphick. Stand up, Libby. This is Libby. She runs Follow the Dream at Hampton and Kiara College. Nicola Angel, who's at Swanview Senior High School. And Ewan Laurie, who's at Gubbo, my high school. Those people, they share and they display these kinds of attributes. And it's through those people that people like Desi and the other kids at the other schools are doing really well in. But do you have this? Are you willing to do these things as well and have these attributes? Oh, gosh. So, how can you hear, listen and action the kids' voices? So our community development model where I work, we run on 4 principles: respect, relationships, responsibility and reciprocity. So you know what respect is, we just talked about that. Everything we do as Aboriginal people is all interrelated. Relationships with people is extremely important. Relationships with non-Aboriginal people and Aboriginal is extremely important. If you don't know someone's name, who they're connected to, who their people are, you got Buckley's chance. That's where you need to start. In terms of responsibility, we have an obligation to be responsible for our actions and for the actions of others. And in terms of reciprocity, particularly research, is we always gather data. We never give anything back to the Aboriginal people. And we feel we're the most researched people in the world, and we are. And it's not given back. So the days of people coming to do their PhDs in our community and not giving back are gone. Through places like my Pindi, we make sure of that. They don't come in there unless they give something back. And it has to be not just a file of data sitting in a report on a shelf somewhere. It has to be something that can implement in the community that anyone can pick up and do. I've got to move on because we're getting quick. Okay, what are the kids' needs versus the point of research in the first place? How are you, knowing what I've just told you, the kind of attributes you need as an individual, plus the guidelines that are in here, how are you going to translate this report to ensure the needs of the kids are recognised and acted upon? You need a plan here. And that plan can be designed and implemented with the local Aboriginal community. You get the elders involved first and you start from there, and they'll tell you what to do and where to go. You know, what are you really willing to do? What changes are needed in the systems that govern our people? You know, we can only do so much, right? We're community people, we're on the ground. The systems around us are alien to Aboriginal people and they don't fit. They do not fit. It's like square and we're round. How does that work? So we need to be aware of what we can and can't change, and systems is one of them. You know, do you want to do what is needed? Do you have the skills, the knowledge, the confidence, the empathy, the integrity? The person who risks nothing does nothing. Yeah, he's upside down. I can't do it, but he's upside down. He's ow. But what is really needed is to make a change is to do things differently and do it in conjunction with our people at every step of the way, from inception, from the idea, right through. So you need relationships with grassroots people. Again, I'm talking about this care, this comfort and compassion. You've got to have that in your court, in your heart. There was no point. We can read you coming a mile away. If you're really, really sincere and you really care about our people, we know what kind of people they are. And I could say, this lady here, Jenny Brody, and John next to her, Jen Joe, jump up. Come up. These are two people that work in Midland that I know have got a good heart, and they walk the walk, talk the talk, and they love our people. You know, don't you? Yeah. And see, Jenny, I know, particularly Jenny, they go beyond their role. Their JDF might say this, but they go way above that. I can also say the former principal at Murich-Noongar Community College, Bernie O'Hara, some people might know him. He was a school teacher and a principal. He was one of those people that went beyond his role, where he drove the buses in and out to drive the kids, and he was getting skinnier and skinnier. And I said, you got to draw the line somewhere. You know, you can go above your role, but you know, there's a point. Non-Aboriginal people need to learn from us. We've got a lot of expertise, a lot of experience, a lot of grassroots knowledge that you need to learn about. But it's a two-way learning, right? You know, time is an illusion. We never turn up on time. I'm always late, Darren, aren't I? Yep. And like, for instance, if we're going to do some work in the community, Auntie Carol, you probably know this too, that we're going in to talk to someone about a particular issue for research or a community program, and we're supposed to start at 10. Well, everyone rolls up at 10:30, you have a cup of tea, you yarn for about half an hour, and then they want to keep yarning, and they want to yarn about this and that and this and that, and then about 2 hours has passed and the venue time is up, but you still haven't got to the bit that you're supposed to be really talking here about. But you can't throw anyone out the door, and if an elder's talking and they keep going and they go and they keep and they go and they go, because they're very isolated people, you can't cut them off. You cannot. That is death to you. You cannot cut them off. Culturally, you can't cut them off. You just got to let him go. But what happens is it buggers up the plan, and then the funding body growls at you because the timeline has exploded out. So, but that's a practicality of what we do, and you have to manage that in some way. We rock the boat. You can hear it in my voice and some of the things that I say. We have to, because things have to be done differently. But are you ready to do that? Some people aren't. Some people aren't confident, or they're scared, and that's fine, but you need to know where your limitations are. So if you want to work in our community and you're not ready to rock the boat, you maybe should not be there. Okay. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. And that was from Martin Luther King. Desi, I see you like a Martin Luther King. Seriously, from what you spoke about, he was very passionate like that. So if you get anything out of today's presentation, that's the thing I want you to really, really hone in on. Because behind that message is someone watching. That's an Aboriginal kid. He's watching and observing. And lastly, I'm going to give you some inspirational things to pep you up a bit to think about. We're only visitors here to this time and this place. We're just passing through, Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love, and then we return home. So our time is limited. What are you going to do with that time? How effective can you be? And I really like this one. If you've got no love in your heart, you've got nothing. No dreaming, no story, nothing. Do you have love in your heart for our people? Are you willing to make those sacrifices and make that change and work with our mob? And border means I'll catch you later, because we'll all come around again. Thank you.